Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting on Monday, May 2nd. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Quetzin First Nation, and that in this room we have different views. We have different ways of expression, different emotional intensities, and different roads that lead to conclusions. May we combine clarity of mind with kindness of heart, and may we be impartial without bending to strong personalities. May we sacrifice self-interest for the good of the whole, and may we do our work with the love and clarity of vision for those that we represent. And with that, I will call tonight to order. So late items, are there any in addition to the ones that are already in?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are, well, as you can see on the late item agenda that was published this afternoon, there are several changes to the original agenda. So we have removed item 5.1, which was a delegation that will be rescheduled to our next council meeting. Remove item 7.1, which was a development permit application, which will also be rescheduled to another council meeting. I missed an appendice to the water regulations bylaw. So water restrictions, the 4 stages, is now added to the agenda. That's item 8.1. And add item 9.1, we received a proclamation request for the month of May. And then finally, asking that council remove the second portion of the resolution to close, which is confidential information received from the provincial government. That's item 12.1.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. And we'll move on to the minutes of the April 19th, 2020 council meeting be adopted as circulated. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. And now we'll move on to our delegation this evening, and we'll invite Inspector Bear up to the microphone to present his quarterly update. Welcome, Inspector Bear. Good to see you outside of a screen. It's been a while.
Yes, it has been. Thank you so much. It's great to see everybody's face and to be in a meeting there with everybody. It seems kind of surreal right now. So if I have a little bit of stage fright or something like that, you'll know why. So it's been a while. So thank you so much. And here to present the North Cowichan Duncan RCMP detachment quarterly report, January through March 2022. So with the pandemic, the restrictions have eased a little bit for their detachment. We've gotten a lot more face-to-face training starting. With the pandemic, we're backlogged. All of our training was put on hold, and now we're able to get going again. And so it's taking a bunch of time. I know I've been to Chilliwack at the Pacific Region Training Center just recently, and the courses have been condensed tremendously, and at least we're getting people getting through and getting the mandatory training that we're supposed to have. So that's a great sign for our officers, and it's increasing morale, and things are starting to open up for us. So that's good. Even with the pandemic restrictions there easing off, we're starting to see a lot more anti-vaccination rallies taking part. We've seen them across in Duncan. Most of them have been extremely peaceful and law-abiding, and we haven't had much to do with that. We've also been seeing the Old Cove logging protests starting up since the weather's been getting warmer. You've seen them in TV with the news down in West Shores area. We're just urging people to be extremely calm and don't take the law into their own hands, because I know everybody's been amped up a little bit more in regards to traffic and trying to get home on a busy day. So we're just urging the public to be vigilant in that, and give us a call and we'll get them done as soon as we can. So for the quarter, a total of 4,650 calls for service were received, compared to 4,758 from the previous quarter. So we're actually seeing a 2.3% decrease. Comparing the quarters, the quarter mischief, shoplifting, and other criminal code offenses saw increases. For the city of Duncan, most of the occurrences either decreased or remained relatively stable. Only mischief to property saw a 13% increase. Mental Health Act apprehensions have remained relatively consistent for the last 6 months, but notably down from January's first quarter in 2021. Car 60 patrols were counts for the quarter are up also from last year's quarter, 272 from 242. So we're starting to see a little more people being arrested and incarcerated. For the quarter, 21% of the total occurrences took place within the city of Duncan. It's usually around 24, 25%. 48% were in the district of North Cowichan, 16% on Indigenous lands, 10% in the CBRD, and 5% from the detachment directly. The top 10 calls for service for Duncan, the biggest one was unwanted person. We've also seen that in the quarter report for the corridor that our criminal analyst did. There's a substantial increase in that. The next one was down, it was check well-being, then disturbance, suspicious person, assist police, fire, ambulance, alarm calls, traffic incidents, and then we get into thefts, suicidal persons, drugs, bylaw, and mischief files. So you can see by the top 10, a lot of them are the less serious offenses there for police. As per the downtown quarter report, the Warmland area saw a 47% increase, while the other corridor areas were up slightly. 16% for the TCH corridor. The Duncan Village Green Mall was up 13%, and you notice that the downtown Duncan core was actually decreased by 9%. So I'm not sure if that had anything to do with the overdose protection site and being relocated over to the treatment center or not. It was down 9%. In the corridor areas, crime increased 12% overall. Increases in volume were attributed to increases in the mischief, the loss of enjoyment of property, and shoplifting. Mischief, loss of enjoyment of property, was driven up by a 26% increase in unwanted persons calls. With respect to the shoplifting, the increase reflects a trending towards the normal after the pandemic, after very low shoplifting numbers that we had. During the pandemic, of course, everyone had restrictions on the number of people going into the store, with masking up, posting of security guards at the front, and it kind of did dissuade shoplifting substantially. While crime increased overall in volume, it became less serious, with violent crime decreasing by 18%. With the housing sites in the treatment center, we're looking at the statistics there, but we're going to need some time to see if there's any changes. We just can't look at it right now and say, well, you know, the Warmland area was increased substantially. We have to see a trend, because there could be a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons was that our bike unit, or the corridor enforcement unit, we actually staffed it with 2 members. We were able to do that. It was important to us, and started the bike patrols going again, working with the bylaw and security officers in the area. So that could have in fact driven up the numbers as well, but decreased the overall crime rate down there. So with that, we've had our staffing issues over the past year as well, like every other business has had in hiring. We've seen a lot of positions that were not staffed, and that goes across for the RCMP. For our support staff, they've been there helping us out within the office, keeping the office going. They've also seen a number of retirements with long service in there from that side of the house. So there's lots of changes and new faces coming up into the office. You've seen by the incoming members, a good sign is that the members are still coming in, and that the numbers of people departing are actually going down. The one member that I mentioned on the report, he's actually gone from the last quarter, so I had to put him in there. So anyways, that's good. The downside is that they're, for this quarter, is that they're mainly new officers right out of depot, but they come with their challenges, but they always come with their pros as well. They're very energetic and eager, and we've got them for at least the next 3 years as well. Just under 700 people took part in our annual online survey and provided input towards creating our detachment annual performance plan. So that's substantially up from the numbers that we had. So if you did it, thank you very much to the community. Where we're at with that right now is that we're drafting it up with our officers, seeing what we can do and what we can do to change things. Our annual performance plan from last year, I think our numbers were done very well, extremely well by the officers, and they championed it with the resources that they had. With the annual performance plan that we had, COVID was kept in mind, so we didn't go into the schools, we didn't have coffee with the cop, this year to get back into the schools, to be talking to the community and getting to know them a little bit better. So I'm looking for some different ideas. Once we have that, it'll be shared with mayors and councils and input and review and finally ultimately approval for that. So looking forward to that. Sarah Davidge was supposed to be here, but we had a previous delegation and she had a meeting down in Mill Bay, so she couldn't be here for it. So I apologize for that. We did attach her quarterly report. We did have the National Volunteer Recognition Week last week, which Councillor Newington there showed up at, and it was very well received. And I hear Mayor Staples also showed up, which was very good as well. So on that note, I'll turn it over for questions and anything you want to grill me on.
Excellent. Councillor Middlemiss?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. One, with all the new members coming in, I was just curious, what kind of program or like training do people get, like to familiarize with the services and stuff in the community? Like, how does that work with new members?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the new members coming out of Depot, they've got an abundance of online training, but then they also have, pre-COVID, they were supposed to go and meet with all the agencies that we work with, go to the courthouse, go to the city, go to local businesses and just introduce themselves, the hospital, everywhere, and a set onboarding program that we have. So it outlines it all, and it's quite extensive. So they do it at the beginning, and they're drinking from the fire hose, so to speak, with all the information that's coming in, and then we do it again at around the 3-month, and then again at the 6-month mark. So before they, it's a minimum of 3 months before they're even let go on their own, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's with the new members that are coming out of Depot. The other ones, the experienced officers that are coming in, they have a smaller one that they have to go through as well. So with COVID easing up there, we're trying to do that a little bit more. But we want them to be immersed with the community and get to know everybody. And it's a daunting 6 months for them.
Thank you.
Councillor Duncan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have a question about shoplifting, but you touched in it in your comments there. So the other question I have is there a change in, because of COVID-19 restrictions or in incarceration restrictions? Has it been loosened up, or my understanding is that you couldn't incarcerate as many people during the active COVID period. Has that been changed now?
I can't speak for the agencies that hold them, or William Head or Crown or anything like that, but I know in speaking with Crown that they have said that there's different thresholds for them to what's called a public interest in prosecuting, so to speak. So we've been seeing an increase after post-pandemic, the increase of people going to jail as well. When we first saw the initial pandemic, they were cutting sentences short and moving offenders out in order to alleviate all the cross-contamination, the spreading of the disease, so to speak. So I think they've got it under control now, and we're seeing more. If you look at our prisoner counts kind of thing, we're holding people a little bit more, and they're being held over. We're noticing for show cause hearings at pre-trial.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce?
Thank you for your report. Inspector Barry, with the closing of our office on the corridor, is that, I don't know what I'm asking here, but is that a good thing? I know Sarah Davidge is not here, and that office is now over by the Thrifty's Mall area, right? Is that correct?
It's over by Tim Hortons there on the Beverly Mall, inside computers and.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Okay, so it's fairly close then. Did your members use the corridor office?
Our members didn't use the corridor office.
Not at all.
Much, no. I think they did meetings in it, and I can't speak for bylaw or Blackbird.
Okay. And will they use the area for community policing? Will they be in and out of there at all? Do you know?
The officers are encouraged to go down and meet with Cowichan Community Policing Engagement Society at that strip mall.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Minimus.
Yeah, sorry, one more question about, you mentioned the bike patrols were back, and I was just curious about what that looks like, or like, how often that's happening. Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the number of bike patrols that we had done. If you look at, I'll just refer to it's on page 10 there, service delivery to vulnerable groups that we had. We had set bike patrols to go from 5 to 10, so we had set them extremely low. We didn't anticipate having anybody on our bike unit for this whole entire year. So it was very disappointing to all the members of the community. It's disappointing to our office there. I think I invested a lot of bike gear to get there to our officers that never got used. And of course, it's personal issues, so to speak, and some of them transferred away to my chagrin. So when we turned out to have 243 bike patrols for the year, I was actually quite surprised for that. So for the total year, and our year goes from April 1 to March 31st, by the way. So that was the end of the year for it. So it was actually quite good to see that. I would like to see at least 4 members on the corridor enforcement unit that's coined now. So in working with that, because I know how much of an effect that it has being out there, and just being seen, being able to get around through some of the Duncan City traffic there on a Friday afternoon in the summer is unbearable, actually. But they get around and they talk to the community, the bylaw officers that are on the bikes, well received, and we can pair up and cover a lot more country as well. So it's a good program we're trying to get up there. So those numbers will be up substantially. I'm hopeful. I don't want to set myself up for failure, but yeah, I'm quite confident we're going to get some bigger numbers there for the bike patrol, and it's invaluable.
I just have a follow-up question to that. What kind of hours are the bike patrols out generally? Is it like a full shift or a half a shift or a couple of hours, or do you mix it up? How does that work?
It all depends on how much, what they're doing. So it's, there's a lot of download on police officers for all the paperwork behind. When I first joined the RCMP, it was, I could write up a file in what's called 229 characters. Now I have to write a novel on every file that I go to, just because the public expects that accountability on the police, because our word back 30 years ago was gold. Nobody ever questioned the police on what they did, and we didn't have to take notes. Now that accountability shift has happened, and there's questions about police work, and accountability is huge. With that accountability comes paperwork, and it's quite onerous. So with a high-functioning bike unit, the downside is that they will find crime, they will address it, and they get pulled off the road having to deal with the paperwork afterwards. So ideally, I'd like them to be out there. They've got 10-hour shifts, 4 days a week. They work a week of days, a week of evenings, and that's at the best time, peak times for crime, and they're going to be out there. And I would love for them to be out there 8 hours intermittently, having their breaks and doing that. But to say that they're going to be out there all that time, you just can't, right? We can't anticipate what's going to happen in any given Sunday, right, with football. You've heard me say that before. But the spirit of it is to get out there and be seen, because I absolutely hate when people come to me and say, hey, do you have anybody on bikes this year, kind of thing? It's like they've been out there, kind of thing. I want them to be impressionable. When I see foot patrols down there, business walks, I want to be able to go downtown and say, hey, yeah, your officers came in and were chatting us up and did this, right? And I heard it earlier on in my career that Indigenous culture would say the people with no legs, right? Because you never see us out of our cars, and we want to get out of that. And people see the yellow stripe, and people goal, but it's tough to do there sometimes. So anyways, keep a short answer. Yes, we'll be open.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone else? No, I was, when I was going through the report, and I know it's not your report, but you're also connected to it for community policing, I noticed that there has been some movement around the business watch. It doesn't look like there's any set up yet, but they're starting the meetings and process of trying to create groups, is that correct?
Yes, and in talking to Sarah there, it's self-admittedly it's been a slow, long process, and it's been difficult to attract volunteers and get things going where we had wanted the Shemanis office opened up like last year, in the springtime. It's just everything's been delayed, and once there's one delay, it just backlogs everything. It's like building a house, I think. Ultimately, yeah, we want block watch going, we want business watch going, we want restorative justice. They're just full with referrals. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. So we're trying, and we need to hear that feedback there from the community as well. What's working, what's not working, and where do we need to focus on, and where should our priorities be. So certainly we're open to hearing feedback as well. So we're trying to make the best service, right? So we deserve it, and we'll see what we can do and make that way.
Excellent, thank you very much. Anyone else? No? All right. Just Mr. Councillor Brooke, anything from you over there in the corner? You're good? Okay. Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much, Inspector Bear. Good to see you again, and thank you and your team for all the work that you do, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
With that, we will move to the report of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you very much, Mayor Staples. The Beach Avenue Street renewal, or Beach Avenue Street, the Beach Avenue renewal is the engineering design for that roadway is approaching 60% completion. That'll be a full renewal of the section of Beach Avenue north of Trunk into the Duncan Christian School for water, sewer, storm, and repaving with some spot repairs for sidewalks and curbing. And the aim is for construction over the summer, depending on contractor availability and what the tender pricing comes in at. Update for the Cairnsmore Roundabout, the Strategic Priorities Fund updated program on that, which is the Canada Community Building Fund grant program. Will be reviewing that at a staff level for potential submission for that roundabout. The application deadline for that is June 30th. Transportation and Mobility Strategy, the working paper number 2 will soon be provided for council review and input on the proposed network plans and priority projects for all transportation modes across the city. These plans will incorporate feedback from the recent round of public consultation. This is the final step before preparing the draft strategy, which will be provided for council review when ready. We are making plans to make a grant application for either the Clean BC Communities Fund, or there's another more recent program that we've become aware of, for up to 3 new EV charging stations in the downtown area or in the Duncan area. The deadline for the Clean BC one is May 25th. I can't recall the deadline for the other one, so we'll be working on that as we can. The draft OCP was presented to Council on April 19th and has now been referred to external organizations for review and comments. So we'll be back to you in the coming months with that. The report has been completed, as you know, for the City Hall seismic design review, and the next steps are to provide that report provided an order of magnitude costs for design and construction. We're now in the process of proceeding with the roof replacement and the further detailed design work detailed in the April 19th meeting. The Enhanced Sharps Cleanup Crew program, the staff are working with the CMHA to finalize an agreement for the continuation of that program. They have been acting in as a continuation as is, but we're still working on the final details of what that extension will look like. The staff had anticipating that this North Cowichan Council will be considering contributions at their upcoming meeting this month. I believe it's on this Wednesday's meeting agenda. CMHA is operating currently at 3 hours per day, 7 days a week, and Island Health has confirmed continued base funding for that program to March 2023. The enhanced program, over and above the basics, includes a vehicle to cover more area and includes pickup of associated litter and debris. And if I recall correctly, over the course of a year, accumulated or collected over 20,000 kilograms of litter and debris. It was quite substantial. The contractor for the Cowichan retractable fencing has been completed, so the retractable fencing is there if you want to take a boo by. The restoration of the oven itself is also underway, and staff will now be working to finalize the agreement with the Cowichan Green Community for the ongoing operation, hopefully getting running this summer. And lastly, Budget 2022 final round of public consultation was held online on PlaySpeak from April 20th to 27th, and 3 readings of the financial plan bylaw and the tax rates bylaw is on this agenda, and final adoption has been scheduled for a meeting next week at 3 p.m. on May 9th via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Duncan and then Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on the 447 Festubert Street, I note that it's been 3 months since staff sent a letter, regarding the ADP review. Does staff follow up with that? I know it's up to the applicant to do something, but after a certain amount of time, do we send them a reminder? Or, seems like a long time to not hear from them.
Can I get back to you on that while the other questions come in? Because I just wanted to look back on something before I misspeak. Someone else can ask the next question.
Okay, Councillor Bruce, go ahead.
Thank you. On these EV charging stations, they're all are they card driven now? Are the people paying for their power?
At the moment, the city is still allowing that free of charge, but staff were just actually recently discussing pulling a report together for council to compare to some of the other jurisdictions. It's just very recently been that other municipalities have started to move towards charging.
Yeah.
Up until very recently, it was mostly on the extremely fast chargers, like the large one that's at the Cowichan Community Center, where we would, they were charging for it. But all of the medium level chargers were still free, but that has started to shift more recently. And we were discussing at a staff level, there's been quite an uptick in 2021 from a utilization perspective. So that sort of contribution from the city to those operations is certainly something we need to explore getting some compensation back for.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, because Councillor Newington was asking me she'd like to pay her share, is what she said to me. So I thought, well, good, we could get these all right, Councillor Newington.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. Councillor Newington, go ahead.
I already pay at home, I'll have you know. My question is concerning the last item, the budget. I'd be interested to know how many citizens actually went in and had something to say about the budget.
We had just one comment, but this particular round of budget consultation focused on the tax rates more so than the actual budget. So the previous round of consultation focused more on how much revenue we're bringing in and how much we're expending, whereas this one just focused more on the split between commercial and residential rates and so forth. So we just received one comment on it this round.
And of course, my question is, have you been getting a lot of people on the previous rounds?
I'd have to go back and check.
No,
There,
don't
yeah,
worry.
there was a report brought to council that said the results of the previous consultation, and there was, I would think, maybe 3 or 4 comments on the actual budget round, and probably about the same amount of views. But there's a lot of information on there that people can just digest as well and just look at, a lot of numbers and statistics. So, you know, if they're reading through it, then that's good too. They may not necessarily make a comment, but at least they're looking at what we've put up there.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Anyone else for questions?
So back to Councillor Duncan's question,
Mhm.
I just wanted to check, so I had the properties straight in my head. So 447 Festerwood is the 8-unit multifamily building. I was in my head getting it confused with the one that's right next door on Festerwood and Ypres, which had a month ago gotten approval by council at the previous council meeting in April. So this one, we haven't heard back, to my knowledge at least, from staff's perspective since the staff letter in February. So we're still waiting to hear back from the developer on what their plans will be. There was some feedback from the ADP with respect to how it, potential for shared use of the hydro transformer and a couple of other issues, but it also predominantly revolved around the access width to the back lane. So we're just waiting for their response to the staff and ADP feedback.
So I just have a question that's actually not on your report, but about the seasonal lighting. If there was any further information about what happened to our seasonal lights. I've had a number of people now been asking me about that, and they are very dearly missed.
Good evening, Mayor Staples. So my understanding is the seasonal lighting was taken down partly to facilitate the tree removals that we've seen, but also because the cords were damaging the trunks of some of the other trees. So the lighting's been taken down and will be put back up again, I believe, for the fall.
Is there any way to have that put up for the summertime? Because that's the request from a lot of people downtown, because it does add a lot to the downtown during the summer months when a lot of people are out. So is it possible to move that?
We'll certainly ask and determine if that's possible.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to adoption of the Chief Administrative report for information only. All those in favor? Excellent. And we'll move on to 7.2, the COVID grant application for the curling club. Is there anyone from staff that would like to speak to that? Or Councillor Duncan, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I looked over this application, and regrettably I would have to move option 2, which is to deny the COVID grant to refurbish the ice plant up at the curling rink. And all I can really say is it's not even in Duncan, and I imagine that very few people actually use it, and I can't see how it would benefit the city as part of a COVID restart to redo the ice plant up there. So regrettably, I have to put forward the motion to deny the grant request.
Is there a seconder to that? Okay. So discussion on denying. Is there anything that staff would like to say about the application itself? No? Okay, any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing no hands, all those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Capps opposed? Councillor Brooke, I didn't see if you were supportive of denying it, or you're supportive of denying it? Okay. So Councillor Capps opposed. Thank you. We'll move on to video surveillance of city property policy. Who's going to be taking this one on? Ms. McWilliam, that is over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through recent exploration of our policies, we have been having discussions around installing surveillance cameras at the fire hall. And we came to realize that the existing policy, the public video surveillance and webcam policy, is very specific to the cameras that were installed at the train station and the web camera that was previously functioning and focuses on the city square out the back of City Hall here. In order to be able to permit ourselves to install new cameras, we needed to update the policy. We also discovered that there was more recent direction from the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, so we've taken that guidance in forming the new policy. We've covered such topics as privacy concerns and signage, installation and placement, access, use and disclosure, retention and destruction of the recordings, training for staff, the required system audits, and how we would address complaints.
Thank you. Is there, sorry, I don't think that I called for the motion, that council approve the video surveillance of the city property policy is attached to the May 2nd, 2022 report from the Director of Corporate Services, and that council repeal the public video surveillance and webcam policy adopted December 12th, 2005. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Is there any questions or discussion from council? Councilor Minimus, yeah, go ahead.
Just curious about, you mentioned it was for the fire hall. Is that something that they're requesting, or so the firemen are on board with? Yeah.
As I understand it, they had, as an organization, the chief requested that we install cameras around the outside of the building as to address some of the issues that I have been experiencing in that area. So.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to bylaws for first, second, and third reading. And this is you, Ms. Gossman, is that correct? Or no, I see Mr. Murphy moving to the microphone.
Are being updated based on recent experience, recent drought years. For instance, last year we informally introduced stage 4 water restrictions, but those are not included in the bylaw as yet. And so these updates do include stage 4, which would be the highest level of water restrictions. And so there are changes throughout stages of restrictions. Stage 1 remains automatically in effect May 1st to October 31st each year. And so we're already under the current stage 1 water restrictions. It may not feel like we should be yet, but they are automatically in effect each year, May 1st to October 31st. And that will remain the case. However, there are changes within each of the stages. And so, for instance, in for all of the stages, the first overall change is that outdoor watering will be permitted from 7 p.m. till 9 a.m. And that's different from now, where watering is permitted from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And so this would actually introduce more flexibility for residents and homeowners to water when it's permitted and within the restrictions of the bylaw. And so stage 1 has probably what is the biggest change, which is, so where currently even civic addresses are permitted to water on even days and odd addresses on odd days, The new restrictions propose changing that to Wednesdays and Saturdays for even addresses, and Thursdays and Sundays for odd addresses. The changes in stage 2, so again, previously or currently in stage 2, where the Wednesday, Saturday, Thursday, Sunday already existed, that will become Wednesdays for even addresses and Sundays for odd addresses. And that's for a maximum of 2 hours. There's still the exception for new lawns with an approved permit to have more frequent watering. Under all the stages, there's a new distinction between what's permitted for hand watering and micro irrigation of vegetable gardens and fruit trees versus what is permitted for hand watering and micro irrigation of ornamental trees and flowers. And so, for instance, in stage 2, hand watering for vegetable gardens and fruit trees is permitted for 4 hours a day, but is only permitted for 2 hours a day for ornamental trees and flowers. So that distinction is made in each of the stages. And then stage 4 is a new stage, and as I mentioned, it was the very reality last summer. If you remember how dry it was towards the end of the summer, and the provincial drought code was at a level 5, and so we introduced informal stage 4, encouraging people to conserve as much as possible. This formalizes it, and under stage 4, which is the highest level of restrictions, there would not be any watering of lawns or washing of vehicles, boats, houses, etc. And even commercial businesses such as car washes and power washing would not be permitted in stage 4. And stage 4 again is the highest level of water restrictions and corresponds to the highest level we've seen of provincial drought stages. And so the idea is that each of the stages, other than stage 1, will correspond to when the provincial drought code for the region increases, then the next stage of local restrictions would also match. And again, this is being rolled out regionally. It's on North Cowichan's agenda this week as well, and across the CVRD. And so it's important for consistency, especially where our water system extends into North Cowichan. Even if we might have some differences of opinion about specifics in the table, it's for the sake of regional consistency. We recommend going along with these water restrictions and bringing them into our bylaw.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions from council about this? No? All right. Oh, Councillor Duncan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Were there previous restrictions at stage 1 and 2 with regarding washing cars and washing sidewalks? Do you know?
Through Mayor Staples to Councillor Duncan, I believe those are consistent, so nothing has really changed in stage 1 and 2 for those sorts of activities, washing cars and sidewalks. And when we were looking at the bylaw language, it was the same language we're carrying over under those stages. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. So that council give first reading to Waterworks Regulation Amendment Bylaw. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
There's a mistake in the recommendation. First 3 readings. My apologies.
Sorry, it should be say first 3 readings?
First 3 readings. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see it. Yeah, the 3's missing. Okay. So that council give first 3 readings to Waterworks Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 3213.01 2022, a bylaw to amend the Waterworks Regulation Bylaw to update the watering restrictions provisions and make other housekeeping amendments. Do I have any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you for everyone for working regionally on this. It's been a number of years that we've been doing it regionally, and it's made a tremendous difference. I do miss the challenges that we used to have, though. The meter beat Ladysmith, that was for water consumption one year. It was probably before most of your times. Tom, Councillor Duncan and I were here, and Mr. DeVertai, and they used to do competitions throughout the region to see who could use the least water in the summer and who could have the dirtiest vehicle. And who could have the brownest lawn also. That was sort of before brown lawns just became something we accepted in the summertime. But it's good to see that those things are now so commonplace that we don't have competitions anymore. Though it would be good to find a new one to achieve through all of this. So we'll go to 8.2, financial plan. That looks like it would belong to you, Ms. Crossman. Lucky you.
Thank you, Mayor Staples. Well, this is the moment we've all been waiting for all year. This has been a long and drawn out budget process, but we have had quite a few meetings and we did work our way through it. And so now we have before you the actual bylaw that will formalize the 2022 to 2026 financial plan. And I've listed here the major contributors that made up the changes in the budget, and it's noted that the additional costs of policing were a little less than expected due to the province not collecting the first 3 months of the year, as we had originally assumed they would still collect under the provincial legislation for January, February, and March. And it was very nice that we were given a little bit of a reprieve for them not collecting that, so that was helpful. And I've listed out some of the major capital projects, not every single one, but some of the bigger ones. And yeah, so it's just here for the first 3 readings, and we will bring it back for adoption next week.
Excellent. Are there any questions for Ms. Crossman at this time? Fantastic work by staff and council working through all of this year. It was a lot when I remembered back to what it could have been had there not been a lot of things happen over the past few years. I'm even more appreciative of going from what could have been, what was it, 33% to 5.25%? Is that correct?
I think we calculated it to be 20, it could have been 28%.
28%. Yeah. So excellent work for everyone sitting here and for past people who've sat here on getting us to this place where we're in a much better position. So thanks for all your hard work on that. So that council give first 3 readings to Financial Plan 2022 to 2026, bylaw number 3223, 2022, a bylaw to establish the financial plan for 2022 to 2026. I see a lot of hands going up. Any further discussion? Councillor Duncan, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Phase 3 of water meter project, 361,000. Will that be the end of it? And then we'll be fully metered and running strictly on the metering after that?
Well, we are very, very close to being at the end of it, but there are just some of the, we call them the problem meters, that are still left. So we plan to be working on those over this year for sure, and I wouldn't expect us to have to put any more money towards it, but it may be very possible that this project still could carry forward into 2023 with the existing funds that we have listed here. And yeah, I believe we should be fully metered at the end of this project.
Any further questions? Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And 8.3, tax rates bylaw, that council give first 3 readings to tax rate bylaw number 3224, 2022, a bylaw to establish tax rate for the year 2022. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Is there any further that you'd like to add to anything, Ms. Crossman, at this point for this?
Thank you, Mayor Staples. Maybe just a quick summary that the previous bylaw that just had readings was to establish how much tax to collect, and now this tax rate bylaw just formalizes the rates that will apply to the different properties in order to collect that money.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Crossman at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you for all of your work on this. And we'll move into new business, that Council proclaim May 2022 as the MS Awareness Month in the City of Duncan. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. And reports from Mayor and Councillor. Are there any councillors who'd like to make a report this evening? I see Councillor Bruce's hand going up. Go ahead, Councillor Bruce.
I'd just like to report that Councillor Brooke and I went to the seniors meeting the other day. We go over there quite often. We play pool and have lunch and stuff. And we were there for their election of officers, and it was a very lively time. The place is very alive and really doing, I think they're doing a great job. And I'd just like to commend them and also the administration they have there. They're all volunteers, of course, and they take on the jobs, and they make it very, I think, very pleasant for everybody. I think it's a very, very worthwhile, very good application of that building in our city, and it's very well used. I think their membership is down a little bit now, but it's coming in quickly now. People are returning to the facility. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Now that things have opened up again, we'll have to have to go in there for a game of, is it pool? It's not pool. What was it? Yeah, is it pool? Is it pool? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we play for money, Bob and I. Perfect. I was thinking of shuffleboard. That's what I was thinking of. Shuffleboard. So for my report this evening, I'd like to just start off by just acknowledging some people that have sat at the regional board table who have passed in the last few weeks. So I'd like to start by honoring and acknowledging George Seymour. He sat on the North Cowichan Council and the CVRD board from 2003 to 2011. Richard Hughes, who was an Area C director from 1994 till 2002. And then a blog and online politician right up until the very end. And Don Robinson, Area D, from 1991 to 1999. I just wanted to acknowledge them for their service and their love of the communities that they represented over all of those years. And the other day, on Sunday, actually, which was just yesterday, I had the privilege of going to the Duncan Lawn Bowling Club for the first time, and I got to bowl. Apparently, you know, I've got the knack. Didn't hit the ball, but I got it around. I was in the right area, and apparently that's quite good for your first time. Again, something run by volunteers, and they've done a phenomenal job. They had some of the businesses who had supported the redoing of the turf. They were also there, and it was really fun, and what a great group of people. And so I did mention the fact that, you know, things have opened up, and that council, they did tell me that all ages are welcome there, first of all, and that the suggestion that council should go and have a competition with some of their best lawn bowling teams. So I feel like we should be up for that. So we're going to arrange a time for some of the staff can come and join as well, and we'll have a couple of teams, and we will play round robin and see what happens. So it is a lot of fun. Just wear shoes that are flat but have a bit of grip, and you'll be good. And blue, not pink, is the theme there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and what a great group of people. So I got to play, I think, 6 games, and I was surprised at how much I liked it. So that is the challenge to everyone here and the invitation. So I look forward to that, and then we'll go shoot some pool at the senior center after.
How many people on a team?
4. Yeah, 4 people on a team, so we can split up in teams. I think it'll be mixed teams with them and us, and then I'm not sure how all that works, but we'll find out when we're there. So something to look forward to. And yeah, it was quite wonderful. And I believe that is everything in my update this evening. So with that, we're going to move into question period. Are the questions pouring in by the minute? Not tonight? Okay. Then I'm going to move on to a motion to close, that this meeting be closed to the public under the following sections of the Community Charter to discuss matters related to land acquisition, 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if council considers that disclosure would reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. Do I have a mover and a seconder? All those in favor? Motion carries. And we will be back together in about 5 minutes.